Well, Scott Martin has been officially disqualified from the Elite Series event on Lake Okeechobee that actually starts tomorrow. And as many of you guys know, Lake Okeechobee is Scott's home lake. This is a lake that he has won hundreds of thousands of dollars on and was definitely going to be one of the favorites going into this particular event. And he is now no longer able to fish the event. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about why Scott got disqualified. I also have a question for Bassmaster. And I doubt that Bassmaster watches this video, but maybe if they do, they can answer kind of the question or kind of the thought that I have down below. I also want to talk a little bit more positively about the subject. There's a lot of negativity in fishing, and I want to talk a little bit about the positivity of it. Also, there was something that happened on the St. Johns River last week that was a positive thing that I have heard nobody talk about. So in this video, I want to talk about all that. Now, let's first talk about why Scott got disqualified. And the very first thing that every person should know was that Scott self-reported something. He came to Bass and say, hey, this is a situation that happened. And basically from that, Bass decided to DQ him. So I think that we should be giving huge props to Scott, because getting disqualified for an event, which I'll tell you exactly what he did here in a minute, but getting disqualified from an event, one, obviously, he's not going to be able to fish that event, and it could cost him potentially $100,000 if he would have won the tournament this week, which he won a Bassmaster Open, very similar time of the year last year on the same body of water. But also, Scott is getting 0 points now for this event. And everybody's main goal when it comes to being an Elite Series angler is qualifying for the Bassmaster Classic. And it now becomes substantially harder. Like, he truly has a huge mountain to climb in order to try to qualify for the Bassmaster Classic. And really, when it comes to the Elite Series, like, it's pretty much going to be impossible now for him to win the Angler of the Year. And so Scott probably knew a lot of this was going to happen. He probably knew he was going to get DQ'd, and yet he still decided to self-report something that had happened. And let's actually talk a little bit about what happened, because I think that there's a lot of other Elite Series anglers who may have not self-reported what had happened. So anyways, you know, Scott put out a video over on Instagram that you guys can check out. But long story short, about 3-4 weeks ago, he was getting some work done on his boat in a shop, and some anglers were talking about fishing, just like we all do as fishermen. We're talking about this and that and this. And apparently someone had mentioned something about Lake Okeechobee, maybe where they had seen some bass. And Scott put it in his own words that he did not shut down the conversation quick enough. And so anyways, according to one of Bass's rules, this is basically like going out and getting information to help you have a competitive advantage. Now, I think that it should be very well known that Scott was not seeking information. And in my opinion, there is a humongous difference between guys talking about fishing and something being talked about in regards to, hey, Lake Okeechobee was talked about, and then people actually going out and getting information. Like last year, we had guys buying waypoints. Not okay. Even like a couple of years ago, I'm not going to name the angler, but there was a guy that was literally requesting a few waypoints like on Facebook the week of an event. Okay, there's a humongous difference between seeking out, getting information, and then just basically guys talking. And I think personally, and this is the thing that I would love to ask Bassmaster, or just my thought when it comes to this, is that, is this a decision that was made by one person or two people, or could this have been a decision that was really made by a group of people? And what I'm getting to is, last year or a year or two, I felt like there was some people that were talking about in the Elite Series almost having a jury for every event, that if some sort of rules infraction came up, that they would be talked about among an angler peer group, basically. And I loved that idea, and I'm not sure if that was applied here, but I really feel like if you had 9 guys, for example, on the Elite Series, and they were told, hey, this is what happened with Scott. He was at this boatyard or whatever 4 weeks ago, and someone was talking about Lake Okeechobee. He overheard some information. I can almost guarantee you that if there was 9 guys in this jury, that 7, 8, maybe even 9 of them would have been like, Scott can fish. You know, because one, this was 4 weeks ago, right? This was a long time ago in the bass fishing realm when this happened. And also, it wasn't Scott seeking information. I know that as me personally, like as a Bassmaster open angler in the past, you cannot pull into a gas station with, you know, Raptors or power poles in the back in a wrapped boat without some guy coming up to you and starting to just talk about fishing. Like, it happens all the time, and you really do have to shut it down, and it can be very difficult to like get around it, because guys like to talk about what they've been catching them on. Like, every guy out there does that when it comes to fishing. And so I just feel like there's probably a lot of elite anglers who have been in that exact same situation and never self-reported it the way that Scott did. So kudos to Scott. Also, I really feel like if this had been peer reviewed or in front of a jury of anglers, that they probably would have been like, Scott's okay to fish in this particular event. Now, the thing that I do like that Bassmaster, I guess, is doing this year is they are trying to more or less put out like rules in front. Like last year, there was a lot of crazy stuff that was happening that was like pushed under the rug. You never really saw anything about it until the very end of the season. And it seems like this year they're trying to get on top of that. So I applaud them for trying to get on top of things. But I do want to make sure that these are things that are worth getting on top of. And personally, in this situation with Scott Martin, I would have just said, dude can fish. And so now the other thing that I do want to talk about real quickly is something that happened last week at the St. John's that, like I said, I have heard like nobody mention this. And it was very briefly, I think, mentioned on live. And that was basically that Bill Lowen, who ended up winning the tournament and you know, making $100,000, and Jason Christie were basically fishing the exact same area. And I think it was like day 2, Jason Christie basically said, dude, this water is all yours. Like, Jason Christie had caught some fish, but he decided to just go ahead. You know, Bill had, you know, a couple of really good days, and Jason just said, have at it, man. Like, this water is your water. Have at it. And if you really think about that, I'm not going to say that Jason Christie handed Bill Lowen a check for $100,000, because you never know what's going to happen in fishing. But, you know, that tournament came down to ounces. Literally, Bill Lowen had 4 fish the final day of a 5-fish limit, with 3 of them being like, you know, 12 to 14-inch fish, like just keeper-sized fish. Jason Christie is a phenomenal angler. If Jason Christie had just caught 1 fish that Bill caught on that last day, it would have been very difficult for Bill to win that event. And so, can we just applaud Jason Christie for just, we don't cover those type of things these days. And I think that it should just be talked about. So thank you, Jason Christie. Obviously, I'm not saying anything about Bill Lowen. Bill Lowen is a phenomenal angler too. Like, congrats on him. Also, let's try to figure out this whole DQ, this whole rule thing. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you in the next one.